Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're going to explore something really significant, I think. The relationship between meditation and the experience of trauma.
Yes, it's a really important topic.
You know, meditation is so often presented as this kind of universal key to calm, right?
Right.
A way to find peace.
That's the common understanding.
But what happens when that very act, being still, turning inward? What if it brings up really difficult feelings?
Unexpected feelings, yeah.
What if that quiet space actually doesn't feel safe at all? And this is a reality for many people.
It absolutely is, and it's something we need to understand with more care and nuance.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in understanding these, let's say, deeper layers of our human experience and how practices like mindfulness can interact with our past, well, you're in the right place.
Hopefully we can shed some light.
We hope you'll consider subscribing to the Deep Dive for more explorations into topics that really matter. You know, our aim here is always to create a space where you feel safe exploring these complex areas.
And your engagement really helps.
Absolutely. Please feel free to share your thoughts, your questions in the comments. Your insights are always so valuable to us.
So jumping in. It's a vital conversation because, like you said, while meditation's benefits are, widely known,
Yeah, everywhere.
the reality for individuals who've experienced trauma can be quite different. Sometimes it can actually feel quite unsettling, even destabilizing.
Right. Which seems so counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think stillness equals calm, always.
You would think. But we need to understand why that might happen and look at more, trauma-informed ways to approach these practices.
So it's not just about bad memories popping up.
Not at all. That's a common misconception. Trauma is so much more than just a cognitive memory. It's embodied.
Embodied. Okay, like in the phrase, the body keeps the score.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a deeply somatic experience, meaning it's fingered literally in our nervous system, in our tissues, muscles, our breathing patterns.
Now old ourselves.
Exactly. Think about maybe that chronic tightness in the shoulders some people have, or shallow breathing they don't even notice, or, clenching your jaw all the time.
Yeah, I know people like that.
These aren't just random aches. They can be the body's way of holding on to unresolved traumatic stress. So when you try to be still,
You come face to face with it.
you might, yes, the stillness can bring those stored sensations right to the surface.
And that leads to this idea you mentioned, the illusion of calm, like the quiet itself is the problem.
For some nervous systems, yes. If your system has adapted to being constantly on alert, hypervigilant as a survival mechanism,
Right, scanning for danger.
then actual quiet, actual stillness can feel deeply unfamiliar, even threatening, paradoxically.
It's threatening. How so?
Well, the nervous system might interpret that lack of external noise or threat as, something's wrong. Or the absence of external distraction just amplifies the internal distress that's already there.
So instead of peace, you get
Anxiety spikes, yeah. Or racing thoughts, intrusive images, even full flashbacks. It's like the quiet creates a vacuum and the unresolved stuff rushes in.
And that feeling of losing control must be terrifying, especially if the original trauma involved powerlessness.
That's a critical point. The very act of trying to let go, to surrender into stillness, can itself trigger those deep-seated feelings of vulnerability and lack of safety from the past.
Which connects to the idea of body-stored memories. You're saying meditation, by focusing on the body, can actually stir these up.
It can, because meditation often guides us towards physical sensations. Notice your breath, feel your feet on the floor.
Standard instructions.
Right. But if those sensations are linked to unprocessed trauma, focusing on them can be like opening Pandora's box sometimes.
So the body remembers, even if the mind doesn't, consciously.
Exactly. The body has its own memory system. Even if you don't have a clear narrative memory of an event, the physical sensations, the emotional charge, they can still be held in the body.
And meditation can unlock that.
It can lower the defenses, yes. As we relax, things can surface. Maybe a sudden wave of tears, you don't know why.
Right.
Or overwhelming panic or dread that just hits you.
Wow.
Or even fleeting visual fragments or physical pain that has no obvious medical cause. That's the body remembering.
It's not just physical stuff, though, is it? You mentioned emotional flashbacks, too. What are those like?
Yes, and these can be really disorienting.
Yeah.
They often don't come as a clear story like, I remember when X happened.
Oh, okay.
Instead, it's more like being suddenly flooded by an intense emotion.
Oh.
Maybe crippling shame or sheer terror, or profound grief that feels totally out of proportion to the present moment.
And meditation can trigger this.
By encouraging that openness, that lowering of defenses, it can sometimes allow these powerful stored emotions to surge forward before the person feels ready or equipped to handle them.
Which could feel like being re-traumatized.
Unfortunately, yes. It can feel overwhelming and unsafe.
This brings up the nervous system again. We hear about fight or flight, but it's more complex, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Polyvagal theory gives us a more nuanced map. Think of three main states. There's the ventral vagal state. That's where we feel safe, connected, socially engaged, calm, and alert.
Okay, the ideal state.
Ideally, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the sympathetic state. That's our classic fight or flight. Mobilized, high energy, ready for action, heart racing.
Right.
And then there's the dorsal vagal state.
Mm-hmm.
This is more of a shutdown, freeze, or collapse response. Happens when fight or flight aren't possible or don't work. Feels like numbness, disconnection, maybe playing dead.
Got it. Safe, fight, flight, or freeze.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for meditation to be helpful, restorative, we really need to be accessing that ventral vagal state of safety, or at least be able to touch into it.
But trauma gets in the way.
Trauma can wire the nervous system to default more readily to sympathetic hyperarousal or dorsal vagal shutdown. It's like the baseline has shifted.
So trying to meditate might just push you further into those states?
It can. If you're already activated, sitting still might just make you feel more agitated, more anxious, trapped. That's the sympathetic state getting amplified.
Or the opposite.
Or, if your tendency is to shut down, the quiet inward focus might lead to more dissociation, more numbness, feeling spaced out. That's slipping into the dorsal state.
So instead of calm, you get dysregulation.
Exactly. Emotional dysregulation. If your capacity to handle intense feelings, that window of tolerance is already narrowed by trauma,
The window of tolerance. Okay.
then just sitting with your internal experience without enough support or grounding can feel completely overwhelming, leading to emotional floods, panic attacks, dissociation, intense shame.
Which really shows why just saying relax and breathe isn't enough. It could even be harmful.
It really could, which is why the whole field is moving towards trauma-informed mindfulness.
Okay, tell us about that. What makes it different?
Trauma-informed mindfulness puts safety first, absolutely paramount. It recognizes one size does not fit all, and modifications are essential to avoid re-traumatization.
So what does that look like in practice?
Key elements include offering choice. Always, eyes open and closed. Your choice. Maybe gentle movement instead of rigid stillness. That can be huge.
Movement, okay.
Also, explicitly orienting to safety in the present moment. Gently reminding yourself, I am here now. I am safe in this room.
Grounding in the present.
Yes. And maybe the most vital part, giving explicit permission to stop. Anytime. To move, shift, take a break, whatever you need. It's about restoring that sense of agency and control.
That sense of control seems fundamental, given the nature of trauma.
It really is. It directly counteracts the powerlessness often felt during traumatic events.
You also mentioned the difference between body awareness and dissociation. That sounds like a tricky line to walk.
It can be. It's a critical distinction. Somatic awareness in mindfulness is about feeling present in your body, noticing sensations, grounding yourself in the physical experience.
Okay.
Dissociation is a defense mechanism. It's about disconnecting from your body, feeling numb, foggy, maybe like you're floating or watching yourself from afar. It's a checkout.
And meditation could trigger that checkout.
For some, yes. Especially if the internal experience becomes too intense too quickly. If someone consistently finds themselves dissociating during meditation, that's a big red flag.
A sign to.
A sign that the practice needs modification. Or maybe pausing it altogether for a while, focusing on building more internal safety first, often with a trauma-informed therapist.
So if someone does feel overwhelmed or spaced out during practice, what can they do right then and there? You mentioned grounding techniques.
Yes. Grounding techniques are lifesavers. They're simple, practical ways to anchor yourself back in the present moment and signal safety to your nervous system.
Give us some examples.
Okay, a classic one is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Name 5 things you can see right now.
Okay.
4 things you can physically touch or feel. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you can taste. It pulls your attention outwards.
Right, engages the senses.
Exactly. Another is just really focusing on the feeling of your feet on the floor. Noticing the pressure, the support, the texture. Really simple, but effective.
Anything else?
Wrapping yourself in a heavy blanket can provide comforting pressure, a sense of containment. Holding on to a familiar object like a smooth stone or even your keys, feeling its weight and texture.
Things to bring you back to here and now.
Precisely. They interrupt the overwhelm cycle.
What about the type of meditation? Is guided safer than silent?
Generally, yes, guided meditations are often a safer starting point for many trauma survivors.
Why is that?
The presence of a calm, steady voice can be very regulating. It provides structure, guidance, and reduces feelings of being alone with difficult experiences.
But the words matter, right?
Hugely important. The language needs to be invitational, not demanding. Avoid things like let go completely or dive deep into the feeling. That can be triggering.
So it's better.
Invitational language. If it feels okay, you might notice your breath or gently bring your attention, or you're welcome to explore this sensation if you choose. Lots of permission, lots of options.
Makes sense. What about silent open awareness meditation?
That tends to be more challenging. It requires a higher degree of self-regulation because there's less external structure. It can be overwhelming if someone doesn't have that foundation of safety built up yet.
It's good to know there are other options besides sitting silently. Mindfulness isn't just that, is it?
Not at all. That's a really important point. Mindfulness can be practiced in many ways that don't involve sitting still and silent.
Like what?
Walking meditation is fantastic. You focus on the sensation of walking, the movement, your surroundings. It keeps you embodied, but also moving.
Okay.
Mindful movement practices,
Yeah.
like gentle yoga or Tai Chi. Art-based mindfulness, focusing on the colors, textures, the process of creating.
Interesting.
Using a mantra, repeating a calming word or phrase, or even just spending time in nature, mindfully observing the sights, sounds, smells, sometimes called eco-mindfulness.
So lots of alternatives if silent meditation feels like too much.
Absolutely. These can offer the benefits of present moment awareness without the same potential risk of triggering overwhelm or dissociation for some individuals.
This all really points to the need to build up that inner resilience, that safety, before diving deep, expanding that window of tolerance you mentioned.
Exactly. That window is key. It's the zone where we can feel our feelings and process experiences without getting completely flooded, hyper-aroused, or shutting down hyper-aroused. Trauma shrinks that window.
So how do you widen it?
Therapeutic support is often crucial. Modalities like somatic experiencing, EMDR, sensor and motor psychotherapy, therapies designed to work with the nervous system and trauma.
Okay, therapy helps.
Also, targeted practices like specific breathwork exercises designed for regulation, not just relaxation. And fundamentally building safe, supportive relationships. Feeling safe with others helps our nervous system learn safety internally.
So it's a gradual process of building resources.
Very much so. Building the internal scaffolding needed to eventually navigate those deeper meditative states if and when it feels right and safe to do so.
This has been incredibly illuminating. It really reframes meditation, not as a simple fix, but as a practice that needs awareness and adaptation.
Precisely. Healing isn't one size fits all. What helps one person might harm another if not approached with care, especially with trauma involved.
Right. Okay, we often get questions from listeners, and quite a few touch on exactly what we've been discussing. Mind if we tackle a few?
Please, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, first one. Why does meditation sometimes make me feel worse instead of better? We've touched on this, but maybe a concise answer.
Sure. Essentially, it can bring you into contact with unresolved trauma stored in your nervous system. Intense emotions, body sensations, memories, before you have the resources to process them safely. Feeling worse is often a sign your system is overwhelmed and needs more support or a different approach.
That makes sense. Next, what exactly is trauma-informed mindfulness?
It's mindfulness adapted for safety. It prioritizes choice, control, grounding, offers modifications like movement or keeping eyes open, uses invitational language, and always gives permission to stop. It acknowledges traditional methods can be risky for survivors.
Got it. How about this? Can body-stored trauma actually be released during meditation?
It's possible, yes. Sensations, emotions, images related to past trauma might surface as held patterns shift. But release isn't always gentle. It's really crucial to have support, ideally from a trauma-informed therapist, to navigate this safely and avoid just re-experiencing things without integration.
Okay, so caution is needed there. Another listener asks, what's the best type of meditation to start with if I have a trauma history?
Generally, guided practices with invitational language, movement-based mindfulness like walking or gentle yoga, or nature-based practices are often safer bets to begin with. Things that help you stay grounded and present without feeling trapped or overwhelmed.
Right. And how can I tell if I'm dissociating during meditation?
Key signs are feeling numb, foggy, or unreal, like you're spacing out, disconnected from your body or emotions, maybe feeling like you're watching yourself from a distance. If that happens, gently try to ground yourself. Feel your feet. Notice your surroundings or simply stop the practice for now.
Okay, important signals to watch for. And lastly, should trauma survivors just avoid meditation completely?
Not necessarily. It's not an all or nothing thing.
Hmm.
While standard meditation might be difficult, trauma-informed approaches can be incredibly beneficial. The key is adaptation, prioritizing safety, building resources slowly, and ideally, getting professional guidance.
Thank you. That covers a lot of the common concerns we hear. This whole conversation has been so valuable.
My pleasure. It's vital we have these nuanced discussions, moving beyond simplistic views of these powerful practices.
Absolutely. We really hope this deep dive has shed some light on that complex interplay between meditation and trauma, offering a more compassionate perspective.
And validation for those who've had difficult experiences.
Yes. Please remember, your own experience is valid. Finding practices that truly support your well-being, your safety, that's the journey.
It really is.
If any of this resonated, we really encourage you to explore further. Maybe look into resources or professionals specializing in trauma-informed approaches.
There's good help out there.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts, maybe any other questions you have down in the comments.
Yeah, keep the conversation going.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We look forward to our next exploration together.